Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest high-energy updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at noon Eastern Standard Time. Just a quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. For years, one number has followed the XRP community like a shadow: 589. Most people dismiss it. Others mock it. Some believe it meant only one thing: a fantasy price target. But history teaches us to be careful with assumptions. Think of the tulip mania of the 1630s. People believed tulips themselves were priceless. They weren't. The lesson: perceived value can mask underlying structural risk. What if 589 was never about price at all? Recently, the number resurfaced in ways that grabbed attention. A post from Bearable Guy 123 on Christmas Eve went viral, with over 2 million views and 11,000 likes, featuring 589 front and center. And on New Year's Eve in Times Square, the giant 2026 numerals were illuminating using 589 energy-efficient LED bulbs. Yes, 589, not 588 or 590. Even Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, has been following accounts with 589 references for years. And MoonPay and Caroline DeFam reposted similar images, the latter with 3 rockets drawing speculation from the community. These are not guarantees. They are signals and symbols. And the timing just posted with market stress is enough to make anyone pause and ask, is this coincidence or is there more? Today, we're going to unpack 589, why it keeps resurfacing at critical moments, and why recent moves in metals, liquidity, and other derivatives markets suggest something deeper may be unfolding. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank everyone who likes, shares, and comments. Your engagement helps get this post out to more people and allows me to keep bringing these deep dives to the crypto community. XRP's technical backdrop. Before we even touch the narrative, we need to ground this in reality and why this matters. Right now, the XRP chart is doing something very specific. On higher time frames, structure stabilizing. On lower time frames, momentum is compressing. On the 4-hour view, XRP is holding a clean upward structure. Markets rarely explode from chaos. They explode from compression, just like the stock market did before the 1929 crash. And when prices were building tension, unseen beneath the surface. The compression isn't chaos, it's potential energy. The key zone to watch is the $2 region. Reclaiming it would flip multi-month resistance, historical support channels, and structural levels from the previous summer. Base comes before expansion, not after. Why the XRP community was labeled crazy. For years, the XRP community has been ridiculed. Too symbolic, too obsessed with patterns. But markets don't move solely on logic. They move on coordination, signaling, and liquidity roles. Sometimes symbols point towards systems, not outcomes. Consider the Rothschilds' use of messenger pigeons in the 18th century Europe. They didn't move assets blindly. They watched signals, networks, and timing. Symbols may seem meaningless to outsiders, but in the right context, they can reveal structural truths. That's where 589 fits. When 589 started showing up in strange places, 589 didn't appear once. It appeared repeatedly across time, patterns, platforms, and contexts. Bearable Guy 123 virals post on Christmas Eve, Times Square 2026 bulbs using 589 LEDs, Brad Garlinghouse following 589 accounts, MoonPay reports, Caroline DeFam with 3 rockets. Individually, none of these proves anything. But repetition matters, ladies and gentlemen. Patterns invite investigation. Remember Paul Tudor Jones and the 1987 market crash? Traders were noticing signals in bond spreads long before the crash itself. Small, repeated signals matter. Here's the part that no one talks about. COMEX Rule 589. There's a real-world rule, COMEX Rule 589. Its purpose is simple. Prevent disorder when volatility accelerates beyond control. When price moves too fast, trading pauses, liquidity freezes, and price discovery resets. Think of it like the circuit breakers on the Wall Street during the 1987 crash. Mechanisms designed to cause panic before it snowballs. Rule 589 serves the same purpose in metals futures. It's infrastructure, not speculation. What's happening in silver right now? Ladies and gentlemen, the market in silver last night, there are people being taken out in body bags. I shared in our community post a message that was shared with me that on Sunday, December 28th, reports have been coming in claiming a systematically important bank, major player in the silver's futures, failed to pay its margin call by 2 a.m. and was liquidated by the futures exchange at 2:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Reports are concealing the name of the bank, but it's confirmed that overnight the Federal Reserve was forced to pump another $34 billion into the banking system through its emergency overnight repo facility. The $34 billion is on top of the $17 billion which had to be pumped in 2 days ago on Friday morning. The bank involved, described as one of the largest players in the precious metals derivatives market, blew past every risk limit, breached every covenant, and exhausted every line of credit. To me, what's happening now is so unbelievable that prices are being manipulated, in my professional opinion. And with all these things happening at once, with this market being hammered, I mean, totally hammered. And there are people that are finished in the silvers market. They're done. Thank you for playing. They're closing down shop, right? So we have a major liquidation, and we're just posting about this, and this riddle comes out. You know, I look at these things from a very different standpoint, right? To me, I think that, and this is very interesting, right? You're going to see money move from riding high in one asset to another asset very fast. These are swing traders who are moving on prop desk from one asset to another asset. All they're doing is pushing it higher. But at some point, prices have to retreat because there's just different mechanisms. So to me, the fact that this riddle came out and there was a major liquidation that no one's talking about because they can't is something unbelievable, and it's unprecedented. You know, everyone go back to the video that we made about Binance when that, had some serious issues. There's spoofing going on in the markets. And I first saw spoofing going on in the heating oil market when I was working for the exchange itself. I had never seen what that was until that point on the floor. Someone putting in a trade, pushing it, to a certain point, then breaching all kinds of orders, and then undoing that trade at the desk saying that they want to nullify that trade. Spoofing is in markets everywhere, but you used to see it in Forex before, spot Forex with MetaTrader before, there was, it was regulated. Banks had Book A and Book B. Book A was 93% of currency traders that would lose money. Someone puts money in on Monday, and by Friday, they're destroyed, cut up like sushi. Okay, Book B was traders that actually make money. They would hedge those trades out. Book A, they took the other side. Okay, so right now, the manipulation in almost every market, we're seeing it, and it's there. Okay. And, to me, I see what's happening in these commodities markets. It's moving from there into crypto back and forth. Now, you ask, why is this important with XRP? I was on the phone all last night when this was happening, watching, because it was probably the most spectacular moves I had ever seen in my lifetime trading. You'd have to go back to 1979 to see something, and I was too young by then to trade. I was just, I wasn't in the game yet. But when you see what's happening right now, XRP is designed, as far as I'm concerned, the utility for control. Money's moving from point A to point B. That's what its utility is for. It's a neutral bridge asset. So when you realize why I say it's like oil in the ground, there's a lot of uses for it yet, the consumption's so important. When you realize that banks and sovereigns and everybody who can use this are going to use this to control price swings, you're seeing why it's so important in essence, because you can control swings as far as I'm concerned, the utility of it, And make no mistake about it, I believe there's people's private parts in a vice, right now over what happened in silver last night. People got totally cut up like sushi. They're done. They're not Gucci whatsoever. They have no conviction for this because they didn't see this coming. That's why. But why I tell you stop looking so much overall at the charts, because right now, I mean, we touch on it, but the charts are being driven by a flow of capital, and the flow of capital is being driven by things that are out of everyone else's control. I mean, I haven't heard any other mainstream media people talk about what I'm talking about that was passed to our trading desk overseas, okay, that we've been following, right? So to me, the news is moving things at a pandemic rate, And if you want to look at silver, and silver has been a very different situation. And if you look at the market, it's, there was an incident during the housing crisis in the silver market with Bear Stearns. We watched that happen. That was spectacular too. But since COVID, silver's in two different worlds. It really is. I don't got enough time to go over all this. I'm going to go over this in our Patreon. And, I'm not giving anyone financial advice. We do give financial advice in our Patreon. If people want to, get down for that, you're more than welcome to. But at the same token, right? You can't really trust the charts right now, ladies and gentlemen. You just can't, because there's news happening so fast that no one's even reporting about. Like, look, on this desk, I don't know if this was just a poor run hedge desk, if it's a client that just blew through all of his lines or whatever it was. We don't really know yet. They're not going to name any names. But this has got enough to really throw chasms really through. And like I say, throw a brick into the water, the ripples. But ladies and gentlemen, when you look at what XRP and Ripple are doing and why, to me, the biggest thing, and no one's reporting about this, what I believe this riddle coming out on Christmas Day, when this came out, okay, this riddle coming out and this liquidation happening, this is what I'm paying attention to. I'm not looking in through all of the pictures, all these other things, right? I'm looking at the timing when these two things were released. Because when you look at this picture, right? Before the Federal Reserve came out, there were cartoons with bears as well, getting people ready for that, right? If you go back into before the Federal Reserve came about. But I look at the timing of a collapse, of a major liquidation of a bank, okay? And the Fed having to get involved with this being released, that's what I'm paying attention to, ladies and gentlemen. 100%, okay? But I don't got enough time to go through all this, right? And it's something that, again, if you want to be accumulating on these days where no one's paying attention. Whatever you can do, slow and steady. This is not financial advice. This is my opinion, what I'd be doing for myself in any capacity, okay? That's really what you want to be taking advantage of as we're the remora underneath these big sharks swimming through the bloody waters. Because believe me, someone's private parts is in a vice. They're getting carried out in a body bag from what happened with this, okay? And this was unbelievable. But, what's happening in the silver market right now is really silver, for such a small metal, so many uses, can inflict massive pains, right? Really unbelievable. But XRP's, mission statement for what it can and can't do, it gives institutions control and speed. Because if you can move things extremely fast, you don't get liquidated extremely fast, as far as I'm concerned, in case studies, But that's why XRP is like oil. You just, there's so many uses for it. It's unbelievable. But to me, the big picture that you got to be paying attention to, as far as I'm concerned, of what we just released right here and when this riddle was released, that timing, to me, that is something that we're paying attention to. Silver isn't moving normally. Gold, platinum, palladium. Silver isn't moving normally. Gold, platinum, and palladium are surging too. When metals move together like this, it usually signals stress elsewhere. History gives us context. In 1979 and 1980, the Hunt brothers attempted to corner the silver market. Didn't end up well for them. Prices soared, but structural limits and regulation eventually caused violent price swings. What we're seeing now has echoed of that story. Markets being pushed near their breaking points. The supply problem no one can fix quickly. Global demand now has exceeded supply by hundreds of millions of ounces. Mining output is flat. Recycling can't close the gap. Analogous events exist in history. During the Dutch tulip mania, limited supply and massive demand created temporary impossible prices. During the 2008 oil shock, bottlenecks caused rapid price surges. Supply shortages under stress are predictable, even if human behavior is irrational. Paper versus real, the fracture. For every ounce of physical silver, there are hundreds of paper claims. The system works until delivery is requested. This is reminiscent of the 2008 financial crisis, when mortgage-backed securities were paper contracts, disconnected from actual property value. The illusion held until too many participants demanded reality. Systems fracture when perception and underlying assets diverge. Liquidity doesn't disappear, it moves, ladies and gentlemen. When systems strain, liquidity relocates. Central banks pivot, injections resume, stability becomes priority. In 1973, during the global oil crisis, liquidity and credit conditions shifted rapidly. Capital fled some markets and entered others. The lesson: when primary rails choke, alternatives gain relevance. XRP exists for similar reasons: speed and efficiency in stress environments. Where XRP enters the conversation, this is not a prophecy. XRP is not chosen, but XRP was designed for liquidity movements under stress. If traditional rails slow, alternatives matter. just like the creation of the Eurodollar markets in the 1960s, which bypassed domestic constraints to move capital internationally. Utility matters more than hype. Why 589 may represent a system event, not a number? What if 589 isn't a price? It could signal movements when volatilities exceed tolerance, liquidity reroutes. History reinforces this. In 1987, stock market crashes, certain indexes hit thresholds triggering trading halts, effectively early warning and embedded in the system. 589 could be the same type of systematic signal. Why this matters going into 2026? Assets are being repriced, trust is being reassessed. Ownership matters more than yield. Like the post-World War I gold standard collapse, when traditional currencies lost credibility, holders sought tangible and alternative stores of value. Digital assets may serve a similar purpose now. What holders should actually pay attention to? Not riddles, not timelines, not assumptions. Watch liquidity behavior, structural breaks, regulatory shifts. Because markets move before explanations catch up, just as they did in historical crises, ranging from 1630s tulips to 1980s metal manipulation to 2008 refinance. Ladies and gentlemen, this was never about 589. 589 was never a destination. It's a reminder. Systems have limits. Leverage has consequences. Liquidity always seeks a path. Whether XRP plays a role partially, indirectly, or not at all, the conditions are forming in real time. The other thing, ladies and gentlemen, this is happening at our office and a lot of other offices worldwide in South and Central America and Southeast Asia. You have right now calls coming in with buyers, big name buyers, who we're not really on some special friends list, that are willing to pay $8 above spot for physical delivery. They're willing to pay $8 above spot for physical delivery of metal. And in my entire career of taking things out of the ground and everything I've been taught by some of the biggest names in mining, you never have something like that happen. That's because there's just not enough of it. And we really do see complex commodity wars going on right now. I mean, I can't believe this. This calls came out of our South and Central American desks, right? And I was blown away to have some conversations with some people saying, well, look, everything that we take out of the ground is spoken for. But that just shows the amount of duress that is in the market right now for people looking to secure access to physical metal, physical silver. There's just not enough to go around, and everything's spoken for, and not enough new mines are going online. Everything is spoken for, every door, every concentrate, everything. And I'm blown away because it's not like we ever always work with certain people on one side of the tranche. My organization's always worked with the same people on the west side of the tranche forever. But this just shows you what's really happening and how bad this is, the race for metals. And it's unbelievable. So, well, people look at ETF inflows. People look at all these things. The main thing that's happening right now, besides the actual quest for physical metals, and mostly silver, but the markets and the exchanges, they need a system of control back, ladies and gentlemen. If they don't get that back, you're going to see things really, really rough, and it's going to go up and down, left and right, because the BRICS unit, they need all the metals. They probably have a numbers that they need exactly amounts of what they have to do and what they can't have to do, right? They need all these things. So, you know, when you're trying to have this Gucci mindset, this Gucci clarity, this conviction, you have to be very careful to go into certain things at certain price points. Someone asked me 90 days ago where I thought silver would be. I said $90. I'm sorry, I said $70. I would love it to be $90, right? But I said 70. 2-3 weeks ago, we were making videos. I said we would get to 70. At that point now, it's very hard to see, is it being driven by speculation, price discovery, or physical delivery? We don't really know. And with what happened with this bank having some issue until this comes out, and there's not many big plays in this situation, this is some stuff that's really, really rough, right? So when you look at what's happening all along, and people would say, well, how does this tie into blockchain and everything like that? It's got everything to do with everything, because crypto is a spec-on trade. It's full about speculation. And as rates come down, metals become more attractive, right? Because you get nothing, you get no yield by holding metals, right? Some cryptos, you get nothing by holding it as well either. But you got to realize right now, everything is being gobbled up. The financial world is being changed as we see. XRP, as far as I'm concerned, made by Ripple, is in one of the greatest positions to test their stuff, to show them what they got. Their ability to create something new in a world that's falling apart from the acquisition of G Treasury and some other things and Rails is so unbelievable. They're so far ahead of what they see that, again, I compared them to Patton having a plan. I compared that people, as far as I'm concerned, should use a cold storage wallet. When you accumulate things, you should put it there, because what you let go of today may be way too expensive tomorrow to get back. It really, really is. Again, none of this is financial advice, ladies and gentlemen. This is my own professional opinion and people that basically retain myself and my organization for that. But at the end of the day, this is what XRP was designed for, as far as I'm concerned, right? Ladies and gentlemen, your engagement helps get this information in front of more people. Thank you so much for tuning in, for liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high-value insights to the crypto community. Have a great day. Always stay emotionless and watch XRP closely. This could be a defining moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions. Remember, the game is changing, and those who understand it first will benefit the most. Make sure you're on the right side of it. You have two choices. You can be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling themselves they'll never let it happen again, or you can be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shit. The one who positioned early, not randomly, but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet, right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink, because the world is distracting you with noise, while XRP continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset landscape. Stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. This opened your eyes, smash that like button, ring the bell, leave a comment with your thoughts, turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you context, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay in the Republic.